Hello, and welcome to Readers, a podcast where the real life lessons and applications of books are talked about by a 16-year-old. Me, Prithviraj Chavda. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third and final episode of Readers. I am Prithviraj, and I'll hand it over to my guest, Mr. Dutya.
Thank you, Prithviraj. We have a mixed feeling today. Today, the third and final portion of this book review. It's a lot of fun. So, as a bittersweet feeling, it may come to an end. But hey, there are a lot of other books that we'll cover as well. So, looking forward to it.
So am I. So, to let you guys know, today we've decided to change things up a bit. Instead of making 3 chapters at a time, which can change drastically depending on the book, we've decided to finish each book in 3 parts. This way, each book will take up the same amount of time. So today, we will move on to our next 3 parts of the book so we can finish the book while incorporating our chapter 7, which we still had left. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any feedback, suggestions, or even any book ideas. If you like this new idea or you think we should go back to how we used to do it, please let us know. I'm growing with the journey, so it is all welcome. You can email me at iampossible1979@gmail.com. That's IAMPOSSIBLE1979@gmail.com. Without further ado, let's get into part 2 of Atomic Habits. So, part 2, the second law. The second law is make it attractive. And this part of the book talks about the environment that shapes our habits with the second law. Remember that the first law was make it obvious. So, we will start with an amazing quote from James Clear. He says, "Perseverance, grit, and willpower are essential to success. But the way to improve these qualities is not by wishing you were a more disciplined person, but by creating a more disciplined environment." So, in a nutshell, a lot of habits need a home or an environment to live and thrive. Doing a certain activity in a certain environment can increase the efficiency of practicing that habit. If you do your work at a certain place, your brain will subconsciously associate that place with doing your work. And this can help increase your efficiency of doing this. And it's not just for work. A lot of times, if you've heard of triggers before, that's what it is. Associating a certain sound, a certain place with a certain activity. For me, for example, I used to drink this chocolate milk every time I went to my grandpa and grandma's house in India. Now, every time I go there, I start craving that chocolate milk just because I used to drink it every single time I went there.
Isn't that fascinating? I mean, it's an interesting example you took, Prithviraj. In fact, it reminds me of an example from my own college days. I was a firm believer and still am. If you want to study, you go to a library. If you want to work out, go to a gym. That doesn't mean you can't work out at home or you can't study in any other room. But the bottom line is, if you have a certain place, certain environment, I feel you're just more productive. I didn't have any data to back up, but this book proves that probably is the right thing to do. So, interesting example about the drink you were talking about, Bonvita.
Yeah.
The different section of this book, right? He talks about how the human brain is used to placing very high value on certain food types, right? Like salt and sugar. Our ancestors, right, when they were roaming around the jungles of savannah, they were always hunting for food. So our brain, which hasn't evolved as fast as social media today. It is the changing times, but our brain is still a little old, I would say, prehistoric. So our brain still craves for those same ingredients. So we basically like to our brain rather likes to stock up on sugar and salt, but in modern times that's more of a curse than a boon. So it's an interesting fact that he has presented, that um, we are tuned to anticipate the pleasure coming from pleasure or reward, I should say, coming from these experiences, eating sugar or eating salty and fried food. So that anticipation is way more attractive to our brain, or way more enticing to our brain, than the actual activity or that experience. I mean, that, I don't know, the more I think about it, I mean, is it true? And I always question and evaluate, and it is true. I was discussing a couple of experiences with my friend the other day, that every time you're planning for a vacation, it's just amazing to do that. I don't take very many vacations in the year, but when I do, planning for it is so much fun. Which hotel will you stay in? Which flight will you take? Um, what are the different things you will do over there? You're almost living in the moment. And when you actually take the vacation, yes, sure, it's fun, but the planning part of it, the anticipation of that break is equally good. I see the same thing. One of my cousins is loves you know customizing cars online, even if he's not going to buy any. And I'm like, why are you wasting his time? But he does find so much pleasure into customizing the color. I see my son doing that too. And I'm like, it's the same phenomenon going on in their minds. They're anticipating that reward, even if they never buy the car. So again, some good tips and tricks that can help us cultivate better habits too, but if we can take advantage of that. What do you think, Prithviraj?
Yeah, I completely agree. And remind me to call you next time I'm planning for a trip. Because I
You
could
got it.
definitely use the help. So I feel like all of this is true. And now that we know the quote unquote loopholes of our thought processes, we can hack our way into habit forming. The author, James Clear, presents a very interesting idea around combining something that we've previously discussed, if you remember, habit stacking, with something he calls temptation bundling. So, what is temptation bundling? Temptation bundling works by linking an action you want to do. An example would be watching TV or playing a video game with an action you need to do, like reading a self help book or working on your spreadsheets or anything you need to do. So he says that an example of this would be every time you finished a book that has really helped you grow as a person, maybe you watch your favorite show for an hour. And he says that you can combine habit stacking and temptation bundling. And he says the formula is after your current habit, you will do the habit you need. After doing the habit you need, you will do the habit you want. Right? So, for example, after coming home from school and eating snack, I will sit down and read 50 pages of, I don't know, Atomic Habits, maybe. After reading 50 pages of Atomic Habits, I will sit down and watch TV for 30 minutes. So, the end goal of this is doing what we really feel like and want to do after we do what we need to do. So, in the next couple of chapters and parts of this book, the author describes the influence of the environment on our habits.
So, if you think about it, right, actually, he describes environment more than one thing. It's an interesting concept that he brings up. It's not just environment being the room, the place, or geographic location. He even means environment. He refers to the environment as also the people we are surrounded by. I mean, if you think about it, we get influenced by people we surround ourselves with. It's a very obvious fact, but you don't sit and think about it enough. So he categorizes, the people or the environment, or people in the environment in kind of three categories, right? The close, the people who we spend time with, our friends, family, what have you. The many or the majority. This one was interesting, right? So, if there is a, if there's a crowd gathered on a street, peeping at something, or looking up in the sky, it's very natural for us to be inclined to do that too. Hey, what's going on? I need to know. So we are pretty much blindly following the majority. The other example that occurs to me, I mean, I almost thought about it on the fly, is what we call as the rubbernecking delays, right? When I was learning how to drive, I never understood those radio announcements where they said, "Oh, there's an accident on the other side," but the accident with no, I mean, sorry, the side with no accident, that has traffic backed up. And I never understood why, because people are just peeping and looking what is happening on the other side of the road. So I'm like, that is so true. If the majority of folks that are doing something, we get sucked into it too. The third one he says is the powerful, the folks who are very influential, right? Leaders, celebrities, sportsmen, even teachers, role models, what have you. So the close, the many or the majority, and the powerful. So we tend to follow these three groups even more. And again, the reason I love this book and the author is because he's also giving us, like I said earlier, tips and tricks and the hacks, if I may call it that. So yeah, he says that you can go and join a group or a culture where your desired behavior is the norm. So, for example, if I want to get fit, and if I go and join a group where fitness is like the way of life, that's it. I mean, it's not like, oh, you're doing something special. Then that's what he recommends. um, I remember I used to have a very good friend, Brendan. He was a runner. He would run a couple of marathons every year, and I would ask him, dude, how do you get motivation and stamina to run? I mean, it makes it look easy. And he said, Anuj, it's no rocket science. If you really want to do that, just go and join your local group. Start with 5K. Trust me, when everyone is doing it together, you would feel, you would make yourself part of that group, and it'll be a very easy habit going forward. Years later, I'm connecting the dots, and he was very right. um, there's an interesting quote from one of the chapters in this book. It says, show me your friends and I will show you your future. I mean, that's super powerful statement if you think about it. Yeah, I mean, you in a nutshell, it's saying the people you are hanging out with all the time, is you are going to be like them. So in a way, we have a choice to be able to kind of nurture our environment, invest in the right set of folks that we interact with, and follow the habits that we actually want to cultivate for a lifetime. So, amazing connection of dots, if you will.
Yeah. And now that we know some tips and tricks to train our brain and tune our environment, the final recommendation for this law to work is to associate the habit that you need or the habit that you want to do with positive feelings, right? So an example that I can give is of a pregame ritual, right? An athlete or like a basketball player, I can use that because I play basketball a lot. Is they'll before every game, right? Our team will talk and we'll get each other hyped up and ready for the game, and it's a lot of positive energy and vibrations that are just through everyone's mind. And then when you get into the game, you have this mindset of, I need to win, I need to go all out, I need to work hard, run across the court, do whatever I need to do in order to, uplift myself and my team, right? And then, of course, there's the entire crowd around you cheering you on. And it's just a very powerful aura of support and vibrations that are very supportive in order for you to achieve your goal. And this is something you need to do, not just with sports, because that's what somewhere where you'll have an entire team, but also influence yourself. Make sure your own thoughts are ones that are positive and aligning with your goals. And make sure you join a group of others who are also doing the same thing. If you want to become a better person, don't join a group of people who are doing something you don't agree with. Join a group of people who are trying to practice whatever you are, philanthropy, anything that makes the world a better place. And this concludes part 2. Let's move on to part 3. The third law is all about making your habits easy and simple to follow. How to make doing the right thing aligned with the path of least resistance so it becomes simple to do. So, the third law discussed in this book is to make it easy. In other words, how do you tune everything, environment, culture, processes, etc., in order to cultivate your habits effectively? One of the key pillars of what James Clear calls habit foundation is repetition or practice, right? He says in the book that a lot of people often ask, how long does it take to build a new habit? But he says that people should really be asking, how many does it take to form a new habit? How many repetitions are required to make a habit automatic? How many times do you have to practice in order to do it? And this is completely true if you think about it, right? Like if you go to the gym and you work out for a solid 4 or even 5 hours, you're not going to get that much out of it. You might get exhausted. You might feel like I'm never coming back to this gym again. You might be really sore the next day. But all in all, it's not going to make that big of a difference. But if you start working out for even 30 minutes every day and you go to the gym for a long time, you will see change because it's repetition. It's the amount of times you do it. It's not just you one time doing it for a very long time that'll make you, extremely fit or a very good runner. It's your repetition, it's your practice, it's how many times you choose to put in that work and to put in that dedication in order to do it.
You know, that's fascinating, isn't it, Prithviraj? Because it's so true. I mean, sometimes we and all of us we get it wrong about just always looking at measurement, like how long will it take? Oh, it's been a few days, it's been a few months. Why am I not seeing the result? But it's a very different question, like you rightly said, that we need to ask. Also, the author talks about other part as well, which is some of the natural strengths and weaknesses that one has, be due to uh, just who you are, or your genes, whatever it is. But at the same time, we should, as humans, we should be very cognizant when of those things when we are trying to cultivate and maintain new habits. For example, he talks about the law of least efforts, which states that when deciding between two similar options, people will naturally gravitate towards the option that requires the least amount of work. um, Actually, this law is so well embedded in the nature too. I always have thought about it even when I was a child. Look at a water, right? When there is a a water body, it finds the path with least obstacles and gets to the other area, or I would say its destination, in the shortest possible path. Same with electricity. It'll always always follow the path of least resistance. It's just way the nature has wired us. At least I believe it, although he doesn't state anything of this sort in the book. But it's just my 2 cents. I feel it's he emphasizes on how we should be looking at our environment, our strengths, our weaknesses, and tune things accordingly, so that we are setting ourselves for success. I don't know, these kind of examples and discussions makes one think that, sky's the limit. There are a lot of different things that we can accomplish if we are kind of cognizant and of all these different aspects, right? You mentioned environment, culture, processes, um, our natural strengths and weaknesses, so on and so forth, and of course the nature's law of I call it nature's law of least effort, or path of least resistance. So yeah. Anyways, very very interesting thought shared by him.
Yes. And if you think about it, a lot of the world that's booming or doing so well is because of this. Anything that provides an outcome with very little effort is something people will naturally just gravitate towards. An example he gives is business, right? Business is a never ending quest to provide the same outcome with the least amount of work. So, a long time ago, getting food or fruits or your vegetables would be the way to do that would be growing them yourself on your farm or going to somebody else's farm, helping them grow it. And this is how you would get your nutrition. And then we developed stores and marketplaces. So we were able to buy them from there. Now I can sit on my couch and get on Instacart and order whatever I want in 2 minutes and it'll show up at my door, right? And another example I can give is in the past, many would have to go to a college or university in order to gain certain knowledge, such as, for example, tech education. Now we are able to access it right now, anywhere, from the comfort of our homes, with many incredible programs such as Team Treehouse, which teaches coding and tech education. And places like these are able to provide affordable education for people who are looking how to build a portfolio, create a network, or land your dream job with Team Treehouse's amazing tech degree program. You can even get 50% off if you choose to on your first month as a podcast listener by using the link in the description below.
Interesting. Yeah, the times have changed and things have become a lot more easier and accessible. Um, one powerful statement in his book, which has made a impression on my mind, is he says, every day there are a handful of moments that deliver an outsized impact. That is so true. If you look at these little choices as decisive moments, um, it's the outcome, or the possible outcome is enormous. I've actually, after reading this and listening over and over again, and again, I've read this book several times. It feels like if we are cognizant of those little choices and see them as decisive moments for our future, it may be oops, sorry about that. I'll go ahead and continue my thought. So basically, it is a very powerful statement where he says that it has these decisive moments have outsized impact. So I've started to analyze my day that way. Even as simple as if ordering the food, whether or having it at home. These are seemingly minor choices, but they have very high impact on in the long run on the fitness, on health, so on and so forth. So anyway, I'll leave that thought over there, and wondering what do you think, Prithviraj?
I completely agree. I think that every choice you make, there's a very little small choice that you can make before those massive ones that really ticks it off, that really starts it off. There's a quote that I really enjoy that we have plastered on the school wall, and that's your thoughts become your words become your actions, actions become your habits, habits become character, and character becomes destiny. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. And I think this is amazing because your destiny all starts off with your thoughts. And if you think about it, it's so small, right? If you think something that doesn't, my first thought isn't that just because I think this, it's going to happen, right? And often it may not, but there are a lot of times where it can, especially with repetition. And an example I can give personally is after I come home from school every day, I have two choices. The first is to just sit down on the couch and get on my phone, or I can change into my gym clothes, uh, fill up my water bottle, and get in the car to go to the gym, right? It's two choices. It's a very, very simple thing. Either I sit down or I fill up my water bottle. Those two simple choices basically determine the next 3 hours of my day. And although this is such a small act, it determines my entire evening. And James Clear says a very interesting quote here. He says, habits are the entry point, not the end point. So habits are your way to get you to do something. It's how you fill your water bottle. It's how you change in your gym clothes. It's how you get into the car to go to the gym. It's not how you finish. How you finish is determined on how you start. And he also introduces something really interesting, which is in relation to this, and he calls it the 2 minute rule. He says, when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. So, an example, going back to the working out example, is working out for an hour becomes fill up your water bottle or take out the weights. Reading before bed each night becomes read just one page. Studying for a class becomes open my notebook. And you can keep building up from here. After getting these small things that will get you started off, you can keep working towards it and turn that one water bottle that you filled up into a fully fledged workout. And the inversion of the third law, which is make it difficult, you have to follow the third law in order to make it easy. You have to make it simple for yourself to get yourself started off on doing the right habit, the right task. So let's take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back. Are you ready to launch your new career in coding? Treehouse has one of the best and most affordable online classrooms for you. At Treehouse, we've rethought the learning process and built a proven system to get you the skills and knowledge you need to achieve your goals. When you're done with a course, you haven't just watched a video. You've learned, practiced, and absorbed a concept. Or choose to build a portfolio, create a network, and land your dream job with our bootcamp style tech degree program. Land a development job this year. Whatever your goal, we'll get you there. Get 50% off your first month as a podcast listener through our special discount link, which will be in the description below. Welcome back, everyone. We will start part 4, the fourth law, now. So, this part is all about how you can make your habits rewarding or satisfying, how you can derive pleasure from practicing habits that can be helpful in your personal growth. One very interesting point that James Clear makes in this chapter or in this part is that it's a lot easier for people to adopt a product or a habit that provides a strong positive sensory signal. But the thing is, we're not just looking for any type of satisfaction. We're looking for immediate satisfaction, not delayed satisfaction. The thing is, in modern society, many of the choices you make today will not benefit you or hurt you often immediately. If you choose to eat a chocolate bar right now, you aren't going to feel those calories right now. You might feel them a couple days later when you start seeing some weight gains. But the thing is, the costs of your good habits are in the present. The costs of your bad habits are in the future. So this is where you have to really watch out for what you're doing, because often you may make the wrong choice in the present and it won't feel like you made the wrong choice because you won't feel any consequences coming out of it. However, when you do feel the consequences, they will hurt. and you will regret your decision. So it's so important to think about the habits and what you do with those habits, because if you make the wrong ones, then you'll only see the consequences of those way later. Um, he also says that the vital thing in getting a habit, whether it's good or it's bad, hopefully you want to get good habits. And the vital thing in getting a habit to stick is to make it feel successful, right? When you feel like you achieved something, when you feel like you got through something that was difficult and came out on top, change can become easy if it's enjoyable. This is something that makes a lot of sense. If you want to become a better person and you're enjoying yourself while doing it, why would you ever stop? Right? And this is the ideal society, and the ideal person is one who enjoys doing the right thing. It would reduce all of the roadblocks on your way to success, right? If you just really enjoy doing the right thing. One way that he says, in order to help you enjoy doing the right thing more, is a habit tracker. This is a simple way to measure whether you did a habit.
This it's an interesting thought, right? So he even talks about this powerful mantra that he says, "Don't break the chain." It's very interesting because his I don't know which chapter, but in one of the sections he says, uh, you know, it's some kind of implicit rule that he follows, that don't miss something that you want to form a habit around 2 times in a row. So everyone slips. You don't work out for a day. Okay, the second day you have a choice. So I remember clearly in I believe it's in part 4, in one of the chapters, he talks about successful people are not the ones or something to that effect. I'm just quoting. Successful people are the ones that come back from failure quicker, instead of the fact that they are the ones who end up doing it, like sorry, I lost my train of thought, but I'll restart, right? So he talks about how you come back from 1 or 2 slips versus making it a habit of slipping. Because when you slip 2 times in a row or 3 times in a row, whatever the number is, that particular thing becomes a new habit. So don't break the chain is his key mantra, right? And I feel I've started to follow that quite a bit. It is it works because if you think you don't want to have 2 failures or 2 miss in a row, it's that rule works like a magic. So he talks about habit tracking. It's a simple rule, right? What you can't track is something you can't improve, so or you can't feel good about. So he was saying that habit tracking is really, really attractive, and it is actually the most effective form of motivation in terms of seeing your progress when you're tracking your habits.
And this is definitely important to know, and that it's attractive. But what happens when you fail? Often you might slip 2 times in a row. It's not that you will always be able to avoid it. And that's a failure and that's painful. But how do you avoid doing that twice in a row? Say, if I skip 2 workouts, I won't feel guilty because nothing happens, right? Maybe I'll do it again the next day. Maybe I'll skip 3 in a row. So, how do you build and change from these failures? He says, if a failure is painful, it gets fixed. If a failure is relatively painless, it gets ignored. And of course, this doesn't always have to be physically painful, but in any way. For example, any of you who've taken a test before, who've failed that test or not done as well as they would have wanted to, I know for me personally, I have been punished for not doing well on a test, whether it's getting grounded or getting certain privileges taken away or having more time to study rather than watching TV. No matter what it is, if my failure becomes painful for me, I will work next time in order to not fail again, right? It's pain and pleasure. This drives so many people. Actually, Tony Robbins once said, everyone in the world is driven by pain and pleasure. Hopefully, someday we will all achieve something even more than this and become great. But at the place that we are right now, we want to get to a place where we can feel pleasure and pain from our failures, because only if we feel pain, we will be able to improve on that failure. So, how do you improve on your failure? Even if it's painful, how are you going to do better next time? Say you did your math test and you got a 50 on it, and this is not the score you wanted. How do you build on this? He gives a very interesting idea called a habit contract in order to hold yourself accountable. He gives some ideas and some examples of people who decided to do something like this. There was an example he gave of a man who set up his Twitter account to send in a tweet every single morning at 6:10 that said, "Hello everyone, this is me," whatever his name was. "I have not woken up yet, and therefore I owe you all $5. Please send me a request." Right? And this is, he lost a lot of money, I'm sure, but he also grew and gained from that habit and started waking up at the time that he wanted to. So creating a habit contract to hold yourself accountable for your failures and to praise yourself or help yourself along with your successes is definitely useful.
Yeah, and if you think about it, right, this is kind of it's an inversion of the fourth law, or the reverse effect of it, if you think about it. So the point is, in order to take out the roadblocks, make those things that you don't want to do unsatisfying. In other words, make them difficult. We talked about how you can make things attractive by making it easy and rewarding, if you will. The opposite also holds true. So what he says is, this tailoring your habits to give you either a reward or a consequence is definitely putting you at an advantage. However, how can we make this advantage even greater, right? If you think about it, there are a lot of introspecting questions, if you will, which we can ask ourselves and incorporate in our daily lives. He suggests those, right? Like, what feels like fun to me but work to others? I'm pretty sure, it's funny, I'm known to be a workaholic at my day job. So what is literally work to others is fun to me, literally and figuratively. What makes me lose track of time? This is my favorite, right? If I'm engrossed in doing something, I don't even know how many hours have gone by. Now that's something I need to pay attention to, right? Like right now, talking to you, reading this great book, it does feel like that. And it's this whole concept of flow, that you're in the flow and I don't even know how many hours have gone by. What actually, this is another good one, right? What do I get greater returns than an average person? So we all are good at something, and not so good at some other things. It's very easy if you look at our own way of living and different things that we may do over a period of days, weeks, and years. Definitely, we know what comes naturally to us. We may fine tune it. Maybe we find a profession that is in tune with it. And this at the end of the day, what he's trying to lead us to is, all this adds to the environment. If I know in a certain environment, certain things I can do where I can literally have outsized impact of my, or return of investment of my time and effort is way greater than average, voila, that's what you need to do. So in some, bottom line is, if you can find a more favorable environment, then you can transform the situation from one where the odds are against you to one where they are in your favor. It all depends on what kind of person you are, and what is the best environment for you. So These are some basic ground rules, or some, I would say, introspecting questions that you can ask yourself, and the answers are not very hard to find, and maybe it does give us that edge that we've been looking for externally. So I don't know, there are some certain interesting things he mentions that are worth trying out.
And although habits are really powerful and important, as is your environment to create those habits, James Clear takes a very interesting approach that's even past habits. He says what you really need is a way to keep uh, conscious of your performance over time. You know, an example would be if you were really trying to lose weight, then keeping a track of your weight over time and seeing how much it decreases per, per month, per week, whatever you choose. And he says that it's precisely at that moment when you feel like you've mastered a skill or really got it down that you have to avoid slipping into that trap of complacency. And in my opinion, I think that growth's biggest enemy is complacency. When you feel like you've gotten to a point, oh, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I know how to do this. I'm great at it. That's where the growth stops. That's when you feel like you're good enough and you don't need to grow anymore. And that's where the growth stops. So he says, what's the solution? Establish a system for reflection and review. This, I think, was an amazing contribution, especially now that journalism and writing to yourself to know your inner thoughts, your feelings, and how you've done is getting so popular, and so many people are doing it now. I've been journaling for a while, or I did for a long time before I slipped out of the habit. I have to do it again. But I remember how much it did for me, and knowing how many either mistakes or successes I had during the day, how to improve on them, and how to continue doing those successes was something that was really important to me, because it gave me a self-awareness and allowed me to hold up a mirror of myself and know that, hey, you've still got room to grow. You're not a perfect human being by any means, and there's a lot that you still have to grow in. But you know what? You can get there. You will be able to if you just keep working, keep growing, keep climbing over every hill, right? And I thought this was an amazing concept, an incredible concept, because not only did it help me build habits, but it helped me look back on the habits that I've already formed and show me how I can build them even further. So that's the power of atomic habits. Tiny changes, remarkable results. This concludes our review of Atomic Habits. We really hope you enjoyed it, learned something from it. Maybe you're even encouraged to read the book if you want. I'll hand it over to you, Mr. Dutia, if you wanted to say anything.
Yeah, I wouldn't say maybe. I would actually strongly encourage all our readers to read the book, or all our listeners to read the book, because we just gave you our thoughts and some of the good discussions from the book. The book is an incredible resource to keep it on your bookshelf for rest of your life. I would say you can go back and refer to it every so often. We absolutely loved reading the book. Sincere thanks to the author to take the effort to write this. I would strongly recommend to go buy a copy and refer it when you can. But amazing learning. Hope you had fun listening to us and could relate to a few things that we shared with you. Share your thoughts, your comments. Any and all feedback is welcome. And Prithviraj, thanks for the opportunity to share the review and my thoughts on this podcast.
Thank you so much for being there. And thank you to all the listeners who came and spent their time listening to our podcast. Keep on learning, keep on changing, keep on growing. Thank you so much.